national security correspondent, Alex Marquardt, and our senior justice correspondent, Evan Perez. Brian, let me go to you first. So what are the biggest takeaways from these texts that have just been released, and why did the Atlantic magazine decide to release them now?
Well, I spoke with Jeffrey Goldberg earlier today. He said the public should be able to see these text messages and reach their own conclusions. It is clear the public has been misled by some Trump aides who have tried to downplay this story so aggressively. That is partly why The Atlantic is now publishing these. Trump officials are playing semantic games and trying to claim these are not war plans or attack plans. But take a look at what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth wrote in this signal chain informing Trump aides of the impending military action. Hegseth wrote at 12:15 p.m. F-18s will launch with the first strike package. At 1:45, the first strike window opens. Quote, the target terrorist is at his known location. Hegseth goes on in this timeline. At 2:10, more F-18s will launch. At 2:15, strike drones will be on target. So Hegseth is giving the exact timeline and accidentally sharing it with a reporter. Of course, it could have been anybody in this chat. It didn't have to be a reporter. They could have added anybody, and that's part of the point of this scandal. The text messages also give details about the after-action report, about the U.S. military's ability to see what happened on the ground after the strikes. Quote, we have positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and now it has collapsed. We see in this text message chain Vice President J.D. Vance responding and saying, excellent. Now, there is one detail that Goldberg and The Atlantic are still withholding. That's the name of a CIA employee because the CIA asked Goldberg to keep it a secret. So clearly, some part of the U.S. government believes these are very sensitive texts, even though Hegseth claims these are not war plans and Trump claims these are not classified details. Certainly, the details in this document are, by any basic layman's definition, classified.
And this issue is now,
dozens of people were reported killed in Yemen.
Brian, this issue is now being discussed at the House Intelligence Committee hearing with all the top intelligence officials. I want to listen to them.
The state of our national security. The war between Russia and Ukraine has just surpassed 3 years and now includes North Korean troops on the battlefield. Iran remains the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, supporting terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East like Hezbollah and Hamas, fueling the latter's war with Israel and Gaza. The threat of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has metastasized worldwide, expanding a robust military and espionage capability well beyond the Pacific, including here within the Western Hemisphere.
Alex, let me start with you. What do you make of these latest developments about whether these messages contain highly sensitive, classified information that potentially could endanger U.S. military personnel?
It just seems, Wolf, that the arguments that we are hearing from the Trump administration that these were not war plans and that they were not classified are at best flimsy and at worst wrong. When you look at the extraordinary amount of detail that has been laid out by the Atlantic today that Brian was just ticking through, this is some of the most sensitive intelligence you can imagine. In fact, our colleagues Zachary Cohen and Natasha Bertrand have spoken to two officials who do say that what was included in these texts are, quote, highly classified information in order to protect these service members. And this is also what experts are saying as well. Now, if they're going to quibble with this being war plans versus attack plans, that's different. But what is clear here is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and John Ratcliffe, the CIA Director, just yesterday, who said to Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico that they did not believe that that level of information was included. And when pressed, Gabbard said that no operational detail was actually in that chat. That is clearly what we are seeing here. We heard from the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, this morning, saying that there were no sources and methods included, inferring that it's not classified. We have the methods here. We see that it was these fighter jets, these F-18s, that were going to carry out these strikes against the Houthis. So just an incredible level of detail here. It does look like Gabbard and Ratcliffe may have misled, if not lied, to the Senate Intelligence Committee. So it will be very interesting to see the questioning that they're subjected to today, certainly by Democrats. But yesterday, Republicans were relatively hands-off. We'll see if they join in today.
The actual text that we saw today, and Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris is co-authored in this latest article in the Atlantic magazine. How are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared? Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. It was clear that they discussed sources and methods timing, very sensitive information was released during the course of this chat.
Right. This is the kind of thing that you absolutely would never put in a kind of in a public texting app. It's not something that Obviously, these men, all of them have, and Tulsi Gabbard, obviously, they all have secure communications where they can, mention all of this. And all of this begins, of course, with Pete Hegseth. He's the one that introduces the most sensitive information. And so, what you're seeing, Wolf, certainly yesterday, and what you're seeing today from the White House is, again, they've blamed everything from Joe Biden's administration for having Signal on their devices. The only thing they haven't gone to is DEI. But what you're seeing also is a very lawyerly way of discussing this. They're saying no war plans, because at the Pentagon, war plans is a very specific term, and I think that's what they're kind of hedging their bets on. The other thing is, clearly the defense secretary has the right and the power to declassify information. And so what I think you're going to see eventually is some claim that he declassified this information before he put it on the Signal
I
channel.
want to see if he does that, when he did it exactly. Did he sign a document, or is he now just making it up that he declassified? I want
To
you to
make clear,
listen. I want to go back to the hearing right now. The subject is coming back up.
As far as I can tell, we're now on Team Kremlin. We vote with them and against our allies in the United Nations. We humiliate President Zelensky in the Oval Office. The president's chief Russian negotiator, Steve Witkoff, is repeating Russian talking points and participating on a madcap Signal chat about an attack on Yemen while inside Russia. USAID is gone, and with it, all American soft power. If I had time, I would ask the generals at this table about what it means to our national security to give up our soft power. We're no longer helping struggling nations in Africa. China, or worse, terrorists, are filling the vacuum. I wonder how many of those African countries will be named in next year's threat assessment. Thanks to Doge, the men we paid guard the most vicious ISIS terrorists in the world in Syria walked off the job. Think we'll see their names in this document next year? Elon Musk fired the people who maintain our nuclear weapons. Does that feel like a threat to you? Apparently all of this mayhem is cheered by the President of the United States and by 20-somethings with laptops and nicknames like Big Balls. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that Moscow and Beijing and Tehran and Pyongyang cannot believe their luck. Now we come to learn that people in the most dangerous and sensitive jobs on the planet put extremely specific pre-decisional discussions about a military attack on Signal, which could be intercepted by the Russians and the Chinese. Everyone here knows that the Russians or the Chinese could have gotten all of that information, and they could have passed it on to the Houthis, who easily could have repositioned weapons and altered their plans to knock down planes or sink ships. I think that it's by the awesome grace of God that we are not mourning dead pilots right now. The two general officers sitting at the table and the people who work for all of you know that if they had set up and participated in the Signal chat, they would be gone. And they know that there's only one response to a mistake of this magnitude. You apologize, you own it, and you stop everything until you can figure out what went wrong and how it might not ever happen again. That's not what happened. The Secretary of Defense responded with a brutal attack on the reporter who did not ask to be on the Signal chain. Yesterday, our former colleague Mike Waltz did the same in the White House, and then went on Fox to call Jeff Goldberg a loser. What do you think the people who work for you are seeing and learning from that? Now, except for that, what do you think the people who work for you are seeing and learning from that? Now, except for that last part, almost all of the mayhem slowly eroding our safety, our standing, and our security in the world has largely happened outside the IC. If you had a part in that, and I suspect you did, I thank you. I'll say it now and I'll say it again every time we see each other over the next couple of years. You must protect the thousands of patriots who go to work every day under you to keep us safe. You need to go to work every day thinking about their morale, their well-being, and their protection. I've done intelligence oversight for more than a decade. It's my job to ask you the tough questions and maybe even make you uncomfortable. John, I don't ever walk through your lobby and look at those 140 stars on the wall without choking up over the fact that men and women far better than I will give their lives to keep us safe. There's about a dozen people in this room who know all their stories, and you know and I know many of the men and women who have stars on that wall died because of bad decisions or poor judgment by their leaders. We've all worked together before, and recent events notwithstanding, we need you to succeed. Your people and our safety requires you to succeed. I really hope you do.
Towards correcting them.
The newly released texts show very, very sensitive information. I'm a former Pentagon correspondent, former White House correspondent, and if other officials at the Pentagon or the White House or other U.S. intelligence agencies in the CIA, the DIA or whatever, were releasing this kind of information in advance of an upcoming U.S. military airstrike, they would be kicked out immediately, if not sent to jail for a long time. You agree?
Oh, hey, when I was in the military, we still can't talk about things that we never even did, just things we planned. That's from 20 years ago. But quite frankly, we've seen a lot of people not get in trouble, including former secretaries of state, and you know who I'm talking about, for doing things that they shouldn't have done. Accountability is something we start with, and it shouldn't be just the lower enlisted levels that get in trouble for doing these sort of things. There should be accountability. I'm sure they're going to do a review. The mistakes were already admitted. They're going to correct the problem, and I'm sure there will be accountability in some way, shape, or form.
Well, you think the FBI should investigate?
I think they are investigating.
Well, we haven't gotten word yet. There's no indication that they've launched a formal, full-scale investigation into this intelligence failure.
Well, whether it's the FBI or the President of the United States, this is going to be reviewed, no doubt about it. We're going to learn from it and hopefully do better.
And potentially crimes were committed in the process of releasing this kind of information in some sort of commercial signal chat capability.
Yeah, potentially. But that's one thing that has to be reviewed, doesn't it?
Presumably it will be reviewed. I assume it will be reviewed. Normally, if this kind of intelligence before an upcoming U.S. military airstrike were made public, in this particular case it was made public, there would be a full-scale intelligence review and a full-scale potential criminal review as well to see what happened, to learn the lessons of what happened and make sure it never happens again. A full-scale review. Should Congress begin a full-scale review as well?
Well, that's what these hearings are about. Think about this, Wolf. This is already one of the most public stories we've had during this administration. It's not even about the story that we actually took out some bad guys, that we actually did a mission. I haven't been able to read any details on that because the entire press cycle has been on this. There's going to be accountability because we know the public's aware of it. We're having hearings on it already just days after this event. So this is going to be reviewed in great detail by a great number of people and a great deal of agencies. So you don't have to worry about that.
Because we covered all those developments. Clearly you weren't watching us, but all those other developments we've been covering them in full detail. And I'm just wondering if you expect, for example, the Defense Secretary Hegseth or the National Security Advisor Walz to resign for their carelessness in participating in this kind of chat.
No, I don't think they will resign, and I don't think it was one of those things, once again, it was done unintentionally. People make mistakes all the time. When I was in the military, we talked about a zero defect mentality. If you punish people for mistakes, people will never take a chance. In the military, that could be deadly as well.
But in this particular case, these were not just average U.S. military personnel. This was the leader of the Defense Department. You would think that the Pentagon leader would have full knowledge of what should be said in this kind of chat on Signal and would know, guys, we shouldn't be talking about this on our personal phones, on even our government phones. In this kind of environment, because potentially the Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians or others could be paying attention and listening to what's going on and undermining U.S. national security and potentially endangering the lives of the men and women who risk their lives to make sure the U.S. is secure.
You're absolutely right, Wolf, and that's why I said there was a mistake made and it will be reviewed. But one thing we're forgetting, once again, the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, had an unsecured server that she put a ton of emails on. And this isn't just one isolated incident, it's over a course of months, thousands of emails. And then when subpoenaed, what happened? They destroyed all the evidence. They smashed servers, and nobody wants to talk about that. That was a mistake too. We should always address mistakes. We should always be accountable, and that's what happened.
But you don't think at this point there's enough evidence right now already out to convince the Secretary of Defense or the National Security Advisor it's time to go?
No, I think it needs to be reviewed much more in detail. I think this is going to be an ongoing discussion. Obviously, it's highlighted right now as the story of the day, but there is a lot of information to uncover before we make any huge jumps to conclusions.
Yeah, this is a really, really dramatic development, potentially very, very significant for the U.S. intelligence community and the U.S. military. Congressman Rich McCormick, thanks so much for joining us.